I do think that evil and suffering in the world is dealt with by human beings, and sometimes people deal with it very well. I mean, look at Manchester, after all of the stuff that happened up there recently, with the terrorism, coming together to really support one another at times of great trouble. And I see that within many different communities. I see that within my own humanist community, and I see that within Muslim and Christian and Jewish communities and Hindu communities. So I do think people come together at times of great trouble, and I don't see God in that. I see humanity, and I think the problem is when we try to place God into that system, into that way of living, that we become too reliant on asking, well, why did God do this? Or why didn't God do this? And actually what we're saying we should be asking is, how can we change this ourselves as human beings? Who is it? And I'm sure as a scientist yourself, this is something, probably the reason you went into science is to try and achieve to fix the how.
Yeah, and at one level it sounds rather like, Sharon, that Hannah's saying in the end, deciding that there wasn't a God made more sense of the fact of suffering. It just is what it is. We live in a world, a universe where bad things happen, and there's no rhyme or reason particularly, but the only way they get better is through humans. We don't have to kind of turn to God. So why for you do you not find a kind of an atheistic or humanistic, let's say, outlook satisfactory in it as a response to suffering?
I guess when it comes down to it, that if God doesn't exist, then we live in a closed system of physical forces and electrons and atoms and molecules and chance occurrences, and this is simply the way the world is. People do what they do because they're driven by their bodies and brains. The natural world does what it does because because of the geophysics and everything else. But there's no point asking why, or there's no real reason to say that there's anything wrong. This is simply the way the world is. But I find that might work on an intellectual level, but I don't seem to be able to marry that with my experience of the world. When I hear of things happening in developing countries, there's something in me that gets angry. And I get angry because it's almost as though my instinct is, this is wrong. There's something wrong with the world, and
it's not the way it should be.
It's not the way it should be, and it creates a longing. Well, what way should it be then? And actually, I find that atheism doesn't give me a satisfactory answer to that.
Sure.
The Christian faith says that good exists, this capacity for goodness exists because an objective standard of good exists. He's known as God, a being who doesn't lie, who is utterly trustworthy, who gives humans dignity and meaning